Hello, everyone, and welcome to this update on Hurricane Hilary. Here are the key messages from the Hurricane Center before we take a deep dive into what's making the storm tick and what you can expect. Heavy rainfall associated with Hilary may produce areas of flash flooding and result in landslides over portions of the Baja California Peninsula from late Friday into late Saturday. Rainfall impacts from Hilary within the southern United States are expected to peak this weekend into Monday, with flash, urban, and aerial flooding possible and the potential for significant impacts. You'll also notice that the threat for hurricane force winds is increasing along west central coastlines of Baja California, and hurricane watches could be issued for portions of this particular area as soon as tonight. Those aren't out just yet. However, you should be beginning preparations now if you are in Baja California, the Baja Peninsula, or you are in the state of California, the southern side, around places such as Los Angeles. The threat for significant wind impacts will continue to increase in northern portions of the Baja California Peninsula and southwestern United States, and while it's too soon to determine exact impacts, we could be seeing watches issued for portions of this area at some point tomorrow, which would be somewhat unprecedented. It's not impossible for this to happen. It has happened before, but it's very rare to get tropical storm watches, yet tropical storm warnings in the state of California. When it comes to large swells, that's going to be the most widespread impact. Dangerous rip currents and swells are going to be likely stretching all the way from Southern California, all the way through both sides of the Baja Peninsula, and even parts of mainland Mexico. So make sure that you're being careful and paying attention to local officials when it comes to swells and rip currents. Well, let's talk about the weather setup. Here's the current satellite imagery of Hurricane Hilary. You can see it there south of the Baja California Peninsula, and it looks very strong. It has a promising eye that is continuing to develop, become more circular. It's a bit obscured, but that's probably going to begin to clear out here over the next few hours. We also notice that it looks relatively symmetric there around its core, and that as we head farther south, it has good interaction with the equator, lots of places for it to vent off to in order to kind of become a ventilator for the hurricane, which you can essentially treat as a heat engine. Heat goes up into the air through various channels. Then we have the sinking air that comes through down the other side, and then up and out goes a lot of your warm air through the eye. So that's what's going on there with the weather setup. Hilary is rapidly strengthening. We kind of mentioned this before. It's likely to become a major hurricane very shortly if it isn't one already, as of the 3 p.m. advisory mountain time. This thing was at 16.1 degrees north, 108.9 degrees west, winds at 110 miles per hour or 175 kilometers per hour, and it had a pressure of 960 millibars moving west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. This lands it solidly in Category 2 territory, although it's knocking on the door of Category 3 or major hurricane territory, with those winds of 110 miles per hour being just 5 miles an hour away from the major hurricane requirement at 115. Hilary is also in a quite favorable environment, so again, even though it might not be a major hurricane now, it probably will be in the very near future. Let's start with sea surface temperatures. The yellow area there, that's the bare minimum for a hurricane to begin strengthening. That's where the favorable environment for hurricanes begins. So if you're at 26 degrees Celsius or warmer, you're in good shape for a hurricane to form. We are in 31 degrees Celsius waters with Hilary, and it has the potential and is very likely to move into even warmer waters in the next couple of days before the waters do begin to cool off as we head into the northern side of the Baja Peninsula and Southern California. So this thing has the potential to be extremely strong as it graces the southern side of the Baja Peninsula and could even make landfall there. However, as it does move northward, it will begin to weaken. That does not mean you should discount it, though, and we'll get into those reasons soon. When it comes to wind shear, this thing is in low wind shear for now and is expected to remain in low wind shear for the next day or two as it continues to strengthen before conditions in general become a bit less favorable for it. You'll also notice here this is the water vapor imagery. It is in a relatively moist environment right now, but if you look there on the top left corner, that would be the northwestern side of the map, you'll notice that we do have some dry air that's beginning to come in. That's also going to help to pick up Hilary, and it's also going to help to burst it open a little bit as well. So conditions overall are going to become less and less favorable with time for Hilary. However, over the next couple of days, it will likely strengthen quite a bit. Let's jump into the official forecast now. First things first, the track of this system is somewhat uncommon. You'll notice it's going to take a nearly due north track. It's going to have a slight westerly jog to it, But due to this uncommon track and just how much of the coastlines of California and the Baja Peninsula are within this cone of uncertainty, that makes it very uncertain for this as well. Hilary is expected to peak as a Category 4 hurricane with this thing as well. It currently, again, has winds of 110 miles per hour. It's expected to get up to 125 by the time we get 12 hours out. By the time we get to noon on Friday Mountain Time, this thing is supposed to have winds of 140 miles per hour. That's pretty remarkable. It's in the top 2.5% of National Hurricane Center forecasts for this kind of situation. So this is pretty rare for the Hurricane Center to forecast intensification of this degree, especially with a hurricane this large. But again, a Category 4 peak is very confident, and that's likely to begin as soon as this time tomorrow. Then it is likely to continue to be a Category 4 hurricane all the way until we get to around 12 a.m. on Sunday, and then at that point it will start to drop off pretty quickly as we do start to have those conditions drop off that we talked about earlier. However, it will still likely be a hurricane as it rides up the Baja Peninsula before weakening to a tropical storm, before perhaps making landfall in California if it does follow the exact center of this. Again, though, there's a lot of uncertainty with where it will make landfall, how intense it will be. Lots of stuff in that regard that is very uncertain. So please keep an eye on Hilary if you are in or around the cone of uncertainty for this thing, as the impacts are going to spread outside of the cone, but also this is a pretty serious situation for all parties involved. So let's now talk about the current warnings and watches in place. So you are in a tropical storm warning if you're in Baja California, Sur Mexico, from Capo San Lorenzo southward. If you're in Baja California, Sur Mexico, from Los Berries southward, you are also in a tropical storm warning. You are in a tropical storm watch if you're north of Capo San Lorenzo to Punta Aberrijos, north of Las Berles to Loreto. And a tropical storm warning means that tropical storm conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area within the next day and a half. And a tropical storm watch means that tropical storm conditions are possible within the watch area within the next 2 days or so. Interests north of this point on the Baja Peninsula or in Southern California should continue to watch this, as watches could be issued and perhaps even warnings eventually for these areas as this storm continues to move northward. Even if that doesn't happen in California and Nevada, do not let your guard down. We'll explain why that is here relatively soon, but one of those reasons is dangerous surf and rip currents that are expected well away from Hilary. Let's now take a look at the rainfall. This is one of the major concerns that we have for the Baja Peninsula, Baja California there. You'll notice here this is kind of a good visualization of where the highest rainfall is expected to occur. Don't pay attention to the exact totals. This is a average of a bunch of weather models, so it's going to underestimate that. But the National Hurricane Center expects 3 to 6 inches of rain to be relatively widespread across Baja California, with over 10 inches of rain likely in some spots. And then as we head towards California and Nevada, we do have that moderate risk of excessive rainfall there that is just to the east of Los Angeles and San Diego, with widespread rainfall of 2 to 4 inches expected, and isolated areas up to 8 inches possible across parts of California, Nevada, Utah, as well as Arizona. Well, let's now talk about the track that the Hurricane Center currently has for this thing. Here is what we see from some models. You'll notice it's actually pretty high confidence, a pretty narrow track for this hurricane in terms of raw potential for error. But the impacts of that low margin of error are actually quite large. So a 30-mile shift to the east or west could completely change the strength, as well as the landfall location, and therefore the ultimate impacts of parts of Baja California and California itself. So, despite the fact that you can see that relatively narrow line, if you're along Baja California or California, you need to be keeping an eye on this, as slight changes in track and intensity could make huge differences for you. Alright, when it comes to what you can do, you can check out our hurricane preparation video that we created. That is courtesy of Ryan. It's a comprehensive guide on how to prepare for hurricanes if in the Atlantic or East Pacific basins. You'll get resources as to what to do, how to keep track of this stuff, and what you can do to remain safe after the hurricane as well. So please be sure to check that out. And finally, before we go for the day, I don't want to leave our Atlantic friends out. We have an area of interest in the Gulf of Mexico, 30% chance of formation in the next 7 days. That could be rather substantial. We're going to keep an eye on that, and we'll make a video if needed. And you can also see the Atlantic is starting to wake up in the main development region, 2 areas of interest with a 60% chance of development in the next 7 days as well. So the Atlantic is starting to wake up. We'll have more content on that with time. Well, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you can hit the like button down below. You can also join our Discord server, link in the description, to chat with myself and the rest of the Advective weather team on current weather events. And you can subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. Thanks again for watching. We hope to see you in the next video.